Hey everybody. So today I just want to talk to you really quick. I had some good questions of people asking me about different things. One in particular that actually sparked me to make a video was, um, people wanting to hear God's voice and how do they hear it? And they really want it and they're not hearing it. And, they want to hear, literally words being spoken to them or hearing them in that way. And I'm just going to speak from my experience because that's all I can speak from. So, for me, God began to show me how big He was. When I first met Holy Spirit about 7 years ago, He showed me how big He was. And He started off with a process of doing that. So for me, I'm sitting at the lake right now, parked here. This is like a block from my house, and this is where He began to talk to me, but not in the way that you think. So He didn't come and talk to me with words and stuff. He began to speak to me through creation, and He started that process for me that way. So as I began to yearn for Him and want to know Him in an intimate way, I'm an outdoorsy person, so I would take walks and stuff. And, He would show me signs. And basically, He promises that signs and wonders will follow those who believe. And that's exactly what took place. So I would see signs constantly of Him talking to me and answering my questions constantly. He would do it through nature. Most of the time, that's how He started for me, was through nature. So it was ridiculous. Okay, ridiculous of how I couldn't ignore it was Him, because it was the timing was crazy. It was like right on time. And it was as if I know that I know that I know it was Him. So to give you an example, I might be, and this is new to my walk. So at the point that this was taking place, I still was in dealing with a lot of bondage, a lot of pain, a lot of brokenness, and not knowing how to be healed from that, how to deal with it. So my conversations with Him were very one way. I would be talking to Him and pouring out my heart, and most of the time I'd be crying, okay, or just so enraged, angry, very emotional. Okay. So, because I didn't know how to deal with emotions, and that was part of my, part of the stuff He needed to teach me was how to not be so sensual and live through emotions, and how to have self-control, a sound mind. So anyway, I would leave the house sometimes and, to take walks to clear my head. And at that point, I would be crying out to Him, talking to Him about it. And as I was talking, He would show me things. Literally, I wrote a lot of stuff about this on Facebook because, at that time, He led me to Facebook to write. It was just an outlet for me to write about God. But it wasn't always His voice that was writing. It was most of the time, at that time, my voice. So I was talking about my experiences and what I was dealing with. So I would be explaining, situations that are happening in, through the soul, through me. But you couldn't deny to see God in them, okay? And that was the thing, because I would be talking about something to God and pouring out, and all of a sudden, a bird would fly in front of me. A white bird. They were always white birds. Always. And they would follow me. They'd seem to show up. Every time I talked to God about something, a white bird would fly by me. It got to be ridiculous. Okay. Got to be ridiculous about where they were. They were in parking lots. They were on the freeway. They were in places that that just wouldn't show up. So like I'd be driving on the expressway and it would fly like right by me. It just prominent, a white bird. So sometimes he'd show me them in groups of 3, okay, to be like Father, Son, Holy Spirit. At first I didn't get it, but the white birds just showed up constantly to the point where it was ridiculous. He used to show me cardinals. I'd see red cardinals all the time. I'd be talking about something, that was just so, pouring out my heart. A cardinal would like fly up right at my window, look at me, as to say, here I am. I'm hearing you, and then fly away. Now, normally, you wouldn't think anything of it, okay? But the point is, it was so consistent all the time that there's no way randomly that could be happening. I would begin to see things in the sky. He would show me shapes in the sky. So I would start to see with my eye different shapes, faces, okay? There were many things he would show me in the sky, shapes, faces. If I was speaking to him, I mean, I can't remember exactly everything, but I remember that period, that season of him showing up in creation. So butterflies, constantly seeing butterflies at different places at different times. But so all I'm saying is this: if you're seeing, okay, seeing nature, you're asking questions and you're seeing nature show up in random places, or you just have this gut feeling like, I'm seeing this and why am I seeing it? It's not your imagination, it's God. Okay, it is God. He is trying to get your attention. It's me. Now, I know you want to hear me, but this is how it starts. That's what he's telling you. This is how it starts. I'm teaching you about the prophetic life of Christ. How to walk in the prophetic life. It's a process. It's a process of connecting everything together with God. So if you're not hearing him by the word yet, words written, or, him speaking to you in your heart, you clearly hear it, there's a reason. What he's doing is teaching you the process of hearing him. And that is through sight too, okay? Because, seeing in the spirit, or just noticing your sight align with his perspective. So he's teaching about the prophetic life. I mean, that's exactly what's going on. I mean, so you are hearing him in a prophetic way. And that's awesome. That's nothing to be like, well, I'm only hearing him this way and I really want more. Hey, you're doing pretty good, because most of the people don't even hear him in that way. Okay. They don't even notice. He's always talking though. That's the cool thing. And so you are, it's a process growing in him in relationship. So hold on, keep after wanting to hear him and yearn for the word for him. I mean, I'm not saying don't do that. For me, the process was, I began to see him through nature, see him through animals. I began to then close my eyes and pray. And sometimes I would see colors. This is before I started hearing him and writing it by word. Okay. So he would show me through all creation. He'd show me when I prayed. I started to see colors. And he led me to prophetic people that would be like, well, colors mean something scripturally. So, I was led to find this prophetic color chart. And, when I would see certain colors when I pray and close my eyes, it was him telling me what I'm dealing with, because I'd look it up. Okay. So he was speaking to me always. But, that's the mystery of God. He wants to woo you in and you just search it out. So that's exactly what's taking place. I mean, I was forming a relationship of trust with him. And at each level, it went deeper. I'm going like this, see? Because, of course, it's going higher, but it's going deeper because you flip it into his heart, into his world called the kingdom, whom you're a citizen of heaven in. It's okay, you belong there. But he's unwrapping it for you. So it's exciting. It's exciting. So eventually, yes, as he kept wooing me to hear him and connect in the prophetic life with the world and what I'm dealing with, it was a natural progression to want to, get to the point where I was like, okay, I got to the point where I surrendered so much. I was ready to hear his voice. I was ready to all those layers peeled away and trust started growing, and I was able to hear him because he was talking to you the entire time still. You just didn't hear him. Okay, there was no trust. There was instead it was like, okay, I want to hear you. Why aren't I hearing you? And he started to talk to you and connect with you, and then trust begins to build. And you're going higher thinking you're building with him, but really he's tearing things down. Tearing walls down so you can hear his frequency clearly. You can go that deep into his heart, the chambers of his heart, and then begin to really hear him. So it's flipped in the kingdom. That's what he showed me. The more you surrender, the more you hear him. go higher in him. Just see what I'm saying? So the more you surrender in trusting him and with your life and everything you're doing, the higher he takes you. Okay? Anyway, that's what he's shown me. And eventually I got to the point where, he had brought me a woman who, during all this time that was going on, she could hear him really clearly. And I really had this godly jealousy of wanting to hear. I didn't know it at the time. I just was like attracted to the fact that she could hear God and Christ in her. And I was so attracted to Jesus in her that I wanted to I became friends with her, and she would help me, but she could never teach me in that way. I had to do that with God, you know what I mean? And one day he just completely cut our relationship off because he knew that I was leaning on her in the wrong way, thinking that because I was so desperate and I couldn't hear him the way I wanted to in words, okay, like she could, I let her be God for me for a while. And he was just like, okay, this isn't working. I'm going to have to break this stronghold. And I call it bondage. That's what he called it. He called that relationship bondage because that's what it kept me in from growing. So he cut it off. I was devastated because, she was like the go-to for me if I was in distress or pain, because I didn't know how to deal. I didn't have the confidence to deal with what was going on with me. I wasn't walking in authority in the level that I needed in order to deal with the warfare I was dealing with. I just wasn't. So, she was like my lifeline, my closest thing to God. You know what I mean? But God's just like, you're going to have to walk by faith. So he cut it off. And when he cut it off, there was no one to go to. So it's just like if you're running to someone for a teaching or a book or a CD, okay, those can become bondage for you. They can work against you, because if that becomes your go-to, you start to lose the luster for him to sit in faith and sit in the not knowing and have to go to him and have nothing else to walk on but him. So you want to go to that place. It's really uncomfortable and you hate it, but that's the place where you're really going to see the glory. It's kind of like, where there's impossible is the best place to be, because it's impossible looking. That's where he's going to show up. Okay. You want to be in the impossible. Anyway, a whole nother video. But, so after this was broken off, I got to a place of complete desperateness because I couldn't lean on, I knew teachings wasn't going to work for me. I knew that was not going to be the place for me to go because I wanted to hear Holy Spirit myself. That was one thing I was adamant about. No way will I lean on man. Fully, and that's what I learned from being cut off from this person, that I can't, obviously that was bondage. So I can't lean on man anymore. I can't. So I did have that yes in my heart. And it just got to the point where I was desperate enough to be like, okay, I'm done, Lord. And one day a man gave me a word of wisdom, and he said to me, and he didn't say it to me, he just kind of flippantly said it. And I was desperate. So I did it. He just said, you just got to get on your face. You just got to get on your face and just, and get on the floor on your face and just, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was like, get on your face and just kind of like, surrender to that point where you're so low, I'm like, get on my face, like lay on the ground. But that's physically kind of what you do, because spiritually that's what you're doing. You're laying yourself down to him, and so what we do in the spirit, God told me we always do in the natural. So I got on the ground because I was desperate. I laid on my carpet in my living room crying, and I told him, I'm not getting up. I don't care if the kids get home from school. I don't care. I'm not getting up until I can hear your voice. I'm through. And there was just it was in my spirit, my soul, that it was just such I'm finished. I won't settle for anything but you now. I'm desperate for you. I'm desperate for you. It was exactly in that moment that when I became surrendered to that point, that level, is when I heard him. And he started talking about a boat. The minute I heard him talking about a boat, because it was a sentence, first of all, that I know wasn't my voice. There's no way I talk about boats. I don't even like boats. And it was so